When a woman does not respect you, loving you becomes hard, betraying you becomes easy, and using you becomes natural. That is when she starts seeing your kindness as weakness, your sacrifice as duty, and your patience as something she can keep stretching without consequence. That is when another man starts looking exciting, and you start looking safe, predictable, and easy to manage. And the painful part is this: most men do not even notice the respect is gone until the damage is already done. A woman may stay with a man she does not respect, but she will never deal with him like a man she fears losing. That kind of respect only shows up when she feels power in him, when she feels that this man has standards, self-control, and the strength to walk away instead of kneeling to be kept. And that is exactly what most men are missing. So let's talk about the 5 things that make a woman respect a man for real. 1. When you don't change to please her. The first thing that makes a woman respect a man is when she sees that her presence does not make him abandon himself. A lot of men ruin their position too early before the relationship even has a chance to become solid. They start changing. Their tone changes. Their opinions soften. Their boundaries weaken. Their real personality slowly disappears. Everything becomes filtered through one question: will she like this? That is where power starts dying. The moment a woman sees that your words, choices, and behavior can be reshaped by her approval, she stops feeling your weight. She sees that you are adjusting yourself for acceptance. You are no longer standing in your own identity. You are trying to fit into hers, and that never creates deep respect. A woman may enjoy that kind of man because he is easier to handle, easier to calm down, easier to control, easier to keep. But the easier a man is to control, the less powerful he feels. That is the brutal truth. Respect starts rising when she sees that you are still you. Your standards are still there. Your mind is still your own. Your personality is still grounded. You do not become softer just because she gets uncomfortable. You do not become fake just because you want to keep her. That creates pressure because now she knows she is dealing with a man who cannot be molded at will. She cannot just show disapproval and expect you to fold. She cannot just use beauty, attitude, or withdrawal to reshape your nature. That is power. And once she feels that, she becomes more careful. But that is only the beginning, because a man can stay the same on the outside and still destroy his value in another way. 2. When you don't sacrifice for her unnecessarily. This is where many men lose respect while thinking they are proving love. They keep giving time, giving energy, giving money, giving attention, giving effort, giving peace, giving too much of themselves. Not because it is wise, but because they are afraid that without all that giving, she may stop wanting them. That is not strength. That is fear. And women can feel the difference. There is a big difference between a man who gives from abundance and a man from desperation. One feels generous, the other feels anxious. One has standards. The second one always loses power because when a woman sees that you are willing to overextend yourself just to keep her pleased, she stops seeing your sacrifice as something valuable. It becomes expected, then normal, then invisible. That is how many men get drained. The more they give, the less they are valued. The more they overdo, the less special it feels. The more they try to prove seriousness, the cheaper they become in her eyes. Why? Because anything that comes too easily and too endlessly loses weight. A woman respects a man more when she feels that access to him is not cheap. His time has value. His energy has value. His attention has value. His resources are not there to be poured out endlessly just because she exists. That changes the whole dynamic. Now, she cannot just sit back and assume your effort will always be there no matter what she does. Now she understands that your presence is not something she can enjoy carelessly without bringing value to. That creates fear. Fear of misusing what she should have valued. Fear of getting too comfortable and losing what was not supposed to be taken lightly. And that is exactly where respect grows. But it gets even worse when a man starts doing one more thing that completely destroys his position. 3. When you don't apologize unnecessarily. One of the quickest ways a man gives away his power is by apologizing just to remove tension. A woman gets upset and he apologizes. She becomes cold and he apologizes. She changes mood and he apologizes. There is awkward silence and he apologizes. Something feels off and he apologizes, even when he has done nothing wrong. That habit is weak because what is really happening there? He is not apologizing out of maturity. He's apologizing out of discomfort. He cannot handle emotional pressure, so he starts handing out apologies just to make the situation soft again. That tells a woman something dangerous. She can control the emotional climate, and you will surrender just to feel safe again. Once she learns that, your power drops fast because now she knows silence affects you, mood affects you, disapproval affects you. She knows tension makes you fold. She knows a little emotional pressure is enough to move your position. And once that becomes clear, respect starts slipping. A real apology has value when it is deserved. When a man is wrong and owns it clearly, that is strength. But apologizing out of fear is not strength. It is a confession of emotional dependence. It says, I need peace from you more than I need truth inside myself. That is why unnecessary apologies damage a man so badly. They tell a woman that your center is weak, that your confidence can be shaken, that your guilt can be triggered, that your need to be okay with her is stronger than your need to stay solid. But when you do the opposite, everything changes. When you stay calm, when you do not rush to beg for emotional relief, when you only apologize when it is real, when you can sit in silence without panicking, she feels a different kind of man. A man with control, a man with patience, a man who does not collapse under pressure. That creates power, because now she knows emotion alone will not move you. And when emotion can no longer control you, her respect rises. But that still is not enough because a man can hold his ground and still make one fatal mistake, giving her everything while requiring nothing. 4. When you make her invest in you. This is where many men completely misunderstand human nature. They think the more they invest, the more a woman will value them. But that is not how attachment usually works. People often value more what they had to put effort into. That is why one-sided relationships lose respect so fast. If you are always the one calling, always the one texting first, always the one planning, always the one fixing, always the one carrying the energy of the connection while she mostly receives, then you are teaching her something without realizing it. You are teaching her that your effort is guaranteed. And once your effort feels guaranteed, your value starts feeling ordinary. That is when women start taking men for granted. Not because the man cared, but because he made caring too one-sided. He gave all the energy, all the movement, all the pressure, all the intention. She barely had to bring anything, so naturally the connection felt lighter on her side. A woman respects a man more when she has to invest too, when she has to show consistency, when she has to make effort, when she has to bring emotional value, when she has to protect the connection too, when she has to feel that keeping access to you costs something. Because investment creates attachment, and attachment creates caution, and caution creates respect. Once a woman has put something real into you, your absence starts carrying weight. Losing you starts feeling expensive. Your silence feels different. Your withdrawal feels different. She cannot treat you like something disposable, because now she has skin in the game. That is what many men miss. They give a woman all the benefits of their presence before she has earned real depth. Then later, they are shocked when she behaves casually. But people are rarely careful with what came too easy. Make her invest. And now the connection has gravity. Now there is something for her to protect. Now there is something she can fear losing. And once that fear enters, respect follows. But above all of this, there is one final point that controls everything: 5. When you don't fear losing her. This is the biggest one. In fact, this is where most of a man's power comes from. The moment a woman feels that you are afraid to lose her. She also feels where your weakness lives. She knows where to touch if she wants to affect you. She knows where your standards can break. She knows where your self-respect becomes negotiable. That is dangerous. Because fear of losing a woman makes a man tolerate what he should reject. He becomes too patient with disrespect, too forgiving with confusion, too soft with nonsense, too available when he should pull back, too quick to explain, too eager to fix, too willing to stay even when staying is killing his dignity. And women feel that. They feel it in your overreactions. They feel it in your constant checking. They feel it in your inability to say no. They feel it in how fast you run back after distance. They feel it in how clearly you need reassurance. And once a woman knows you are not going anywhere, no matter how badly she behaves, something in her becomes too relaxed. She stops fearing consequences. That is when respect starts collapsing, because the man who fears losing her too much will always be easier to control than the man who values himself enough to walk away. This is why non-neediness is powerful. This is why emotional independence matters. This is why a man who can let go carries more weight than a man who keeps begging to be kept. When a woman sees that you value her but do not depend on her, she feels something serious. She feels that this man can leave. She feels that this man can recover. She feels that this man can choose peace over attachment. She feels that this man's life does not end with her. That creates real fear. Fear of losing access to someone solid. Fear of losing a man who cannot be trapped by attention, beauty, or emotional games. Fear of being replaced by his peace, his standards, and his self-respect. And once that fear is real, respect becomes real too. Because now she is not dealing with a man who is hoping to be chosen no matter the cost. She is dealing with a man who chooses to. And women respect men who choose, not men who beg to stay. What makes a woman respect a man is not just that he cares. It is that she feels his power. She feels that he cannot be bent easily. She feels that he does not abandon himself to keep her. She feels that he has standards, emotional control, and the strength to let go if necessary. That is why these 5 things matter so much. That is what gives a man weight. And once a woman feels that weight, she deals with him differently. She speaks differently. She moves differently. She becomes more aware that this is not a man she can casually play with and still keep. That is respect. Not begged for, not forced, not performed for. Earned through power, boundaries, and the ability to remain whole with or without her.